When my income was exposed, my son and his unexpected wife showed up demanding an incredible sum. The autumn wind whipped through the trees, carrying the sharp edges of uncertainty as Tom stood frozen in his doorway. He had finally broken through the long stretch of financial strain, a quiet life built on late nights at the office, tax forms, and spreadsheets. But now it felt like the ground was falling from beneath him. Ethan, his son, had always been bright, destined for great things. But the young man standing at his doorstep bore a weight Tom couldn't quite grasp, an unsettling mixture of resolve and desperation behind those once wide-eyed hazel eyes. And beside him was Maya, someone Tom had never truly known, her vibrant presence enforcing the gravity of his son's request. "Dad," Ethan started, uneasily shifting on his feet. "Maya and I want to talk about something important." The thrill of anticipation in the boy's voice battled with a simmering tension in the air, sending a shiver down Tom's spine. "We need money to showcase Maya's art." The words hung heavy between them, pregnant with implications. An ultimatum had been inadvertently issued, and Tom's body went taut, his mind racing with the magnitude of it all. Tom felt a whirlwind of emotions bubbling to the surface, colliding with the principles he had instilled in Ethan. How can I deny my son? Yet, the impossible burden of funding dreams on his limited salary pressed down on him like a stone. He shook his head, fighting the panic rising in his chest. "Ethan, I don't think before we continue. I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. Tom shifted gears, swirling in the maelstrom of doubt. Ethan was asking for a leap of faith, a step into a world of privilege that Tom had sacrificed so much to shield them from. Would supporting this dream entrench them deeper into a class that couldn't accept them, or force his son into a place that didn't honor the values they lived by? The whispers from neighbors twisted like a creeping vine in his brain, robbing him of reason, clenching tighter with every mistrustful glance or word behind their backs. An unexpected realization dawned on him. Maya's artistic talent had deeper roots, entwined with aspirations that resonated disturbingly close to his own past. As fragments of his own ambitions and failures resurfaced, Tom wrestled with the implications. Was he extending a hand to support a promising artist, or inadvertently feeding into a web of social climbing that risked unraveling their family? In that moment, the chasm between them seemed insurmountable. Tom's breaths quickened, muscles tense. A suffocating blend of love and fear constricted around his chest. How could he betray his own values for the sake of an illusion that might placate surfaces while imprisoning truth? The decision loomed like a cloud, darkening the warmth of their home, and as he stood facing Ethan, the world outside felt too heavy, too loud. The echoes of their history whispered in his ears, threatening to fracture the very foundation of their bond. The question gnawed relentlessly, and as dread settled in the pit of his stomach, Tom braced himself for the strife ahead, knowing that whatever choice he made would alter everything. Tom inhaled deeply, attempting to steady the storm within him. It was not mere anxiety. It was a cacophony of voices battling for dominance, each advocating for a different course of action. The familiar creak of the wooden floor beneath him brought him back to the present moment, where Ethan and Maya were still waiting for an answer, their expressions a mix of hope and apprehension. "Ethan," he finally managed, "I need you to understand my position." His voice trembled, an uncharacteristic crack that shattered his facade of parental authority. "This isn't just about what you want. It's about stability, our security. I can't put everything on the line for a gamble." Ethan's shoulders drooped, the weight of disappointment palpable in the air. "Dad, it's not a gamble. Maya's art is special. If we don't act now, it could slip away forever." Tom's chest tightened at the sincerity behind his son's plea. He recalled his own dreams fading into the background as adulthood's responsibilities tightened their grip. What would it do to Ethan if he denied this opportunity? Would this choice fracture their bond beyond repair? The unspoken fear of empathy clawed at him. "Think about it, Tom," he could almost hear his own voice echoing in his mind, the echoes of a younger version of himself battling for validation, struggling against doubt. But adult Tom knew the reality. Dreams didn't always translate to success. They'd required sacrifice, often at the expense of family. After all, sacrifice had saved them once before. Maya, he turned to her, desperate to find a different angle. What happens if this doesn't work out? You've only just started. Can you handle the pressure of this kind of spotlight? Her eyes met his, a fierce determination burning behind them. I'll show you what my art can do. I've dedicated my life to this. Her voice was steady, pulling at him in ways he didn't want to explore. I just need the chance to prove it. Tom's mind raced, thoughts spiraling into intricate webs of past failures and present fears. Did he dare risk the little stability they had left for the uncertain promise of artistic success? Or was he suffocating his son's potential beneath the burden of hesitation? He was at a crossroads where dreams collided with duty. It was then he realized his initial instinct to protect had morphed into a fear of losing them both. The financial investment was but a piece of a larger puzzle. How had he let his ambitions be eclipsed by fear? A flicker of rage sparked in his chest at the realization. Perhaps Ethan had found the courage he lacked, an illumination of his own dormant aspirations. Tom had been a dreamer once, but he had buried that part of himself deep beneath the reality of adulthood. And now, his son was asking him to resurrect it, if only for a moment. As he contemplated what to say next, grappling with the tumult of his internal conflict, something shifted in the tension of the moment. The decision felt like an anchor threatening to pull him under. Perhaps he thought the question wasn't about the money at all. Maybe the real issue was whether he could reconcile who he was with who he wanted to become. Okay, he started, his voice firming up despite the doubt swirling inside him. I can contribute, but on one condition. What condition? Ethan leaned in, his eyes wide with anticipation. You both need to show me how serious you are about this. I want to plan something tangible to consider. If you can come back with that, I'll help. Ethan's grin ignited a flicker of hope, but Tom's mind was still a whirlwind of uncertainty. Had he unlocked a door that would drag him back into the very chaos he had worked to escape? Or was this the beginning of a personal renaissance he had long since forgotten? As he stepped back from the threshold, the chill of the autumn air permeating the warmth of their home, Tom realized the seed of change had been planted. He could feel the unfamiliar rush of ambition beginning to swell within him once more, intertwining good intentions with the flickering flames of anxiety. What if, in supporting Ethan's dream, he unearthed his own? And as he stood there watching Ethan and Maya leave with renewed hope, Tom could sense a storm brewing, one that could redefine them all. The moment of truth was drawing near, and with it, a confrontation between the past he knew and the future he feared. The pressure mounted within Tom as he retreated to his study, the dim light casting long shadows around the room. He sank into the worn leather chair, its familiar embrace giving him a momentary refuge. The past few hours echoed in his mind, a cacophony of emotions swirling like restless tides. The exhilaration of making a decision, tinged with the relentless burden of financial reality, collided in a disorienting clash. Maya's promise lingered in the air. I'll show you what my art can do. Her words ignited a spark of inspiration he hadn't felt in years, but the weight of failure shaped a counterbalance, muffling that flame. Could supporting Ethan and by extension, Maya actually reignite his own dreams? Or was he merely setting himself up for disappointment? He rifled through a stack of old papers cluttering his desk, searching for anything that might distract him. Among outdated bills and a forgotten grocery list, a crumpled flyer caught his eye. It advertised local art classes in vibrant letters, a reminder of his own long-buried interests and ambitions. He stared at the imagery, vibrant and alive, and felt a pulse of longing surging through him. For a brief moment, he was transported back to his youth, standing in an art studio with brushes in hand, color splattering on canvas without fear of judgment. The urge to create had been so intoxicating back then. As quickly as the memory surfaced, clouds of reality dampened it. He dismissed the thought. Those were childish fantasies, dreams unworthy of consideration. Yet the thought persisted, bubbling beneath the surface. What if he took a class alongside Ethan and Maya? What if, for the first time in years, he allowed himself to explore that forgotten part of his life? The thought was thrilling but terrifying. It required dismantling the walls he had built to protect himself, a vulnerability he had long avoided. The clock ticked on the wall, its movements slow and deliberate, as if mocking his internal struggle. He glanced out of the window, watching Ethan and Maya animatedly discussing plans beneath the fading light. Their passion was so unmistakable, their youthful energy infectious. In that moment, envy intertwined with admiration. They had strength, conviction, and a clear vision, qualities he had allowed to slip through his fingers. Suddenly, determination surged within him, a force so overwhelming it felt almost foreign. What if he harnessed that energy? What if he showed them the same support he once craved? He stood up, pacing as ideas began to unravel in his mind. He pulled a notepad from the drawer and began jotting down thoughts. A plan was forming, not just for Ethan and Maya, but for himself too. But would embracing that ambition truly lead to growth? Or would it further shatter the fragile stability of their lives? What if he stepped into the unknown, nurturing artistic pursuits while navigating the realities of supporting his family? Questions danced around his mind, each accompanied by a hint of excitement, yet stifled by an echo of trepidation. Before he could spiral further into his thoughts, the door creaked open. Ethan stepped in, his face alight with enthusiasm, and Tom felt a pang of guilt for his earlier reluctance. "Dad, we've been brainstorming. Can we show you our ideas?" Ethan's eagerness was palpable, but so was the conviction in his own heart that began to dissolve Tom's hesitations. "Of course," Tom replied, his voice steadier than he felt. There was a fracture in his composure, a hint of vulnerability, but there was also the fierce flicker of ambition reigniting. As they gathered around the desk, Tom realized this moment was pivotal. It was not only a chance to empower his son and Maya, but also a profound opportunity for self-discovery. The decision loomed, and it teased the edges of his understanding of identity, who he had been versus who he could become. With the renewed purpose enveloping him like a hug, Tom felt joy and dread coalesce into something new, something absurdly hopeful. But as Ethan spread their thoughts before him, excited sketches and a risky financial layout, Tom sensed impatience creeping around the edges of this burgeoning plan. The stakes were increasing, and with each detail unveiled, he felt the gravity of commitment weighing heavily on him. He faced the storm of emotion once more, pondering whether he could truly endure the external pressures while unleashing the potential within. The world outside loomed large, but it was in that room, among dreams and sketches, that Tom stood on the precipice of profound change, his journey intertwined with Ethan's and Maya's in ways he had only begun to realize. As the sketches unfurled, a question danced perilously close, leaving Tom suspended in uncertainty. Was he prepared to risk everything for the promise of a dream? And if so, what sacrifices would come with that leap? The time had come to face that decision head-on. The sketches spread across the desk, vibrant and chaotic, spilling over like the turmoil brewing inside Tom. He leaned forward, his heart racing as he studied the ideas laid before him. Ethan's enthusiasm mixed with Maya's artistic vision created a whirlwind of possibilities, each one more daring than the last. "Dad, look at this!" Ethan exclaimed, pointing eagerly at a particular design. "This could be our first showcase. What if we went bigger and designed a mural for that wall at the community center? It'll draw people in, provide exposure, and show everyone what we can do." Tom swallowed hard. The implication of Ethan's suggestion was profound, a chance to intertwine creativity with their financial future. Yet his mind was awash with fears about their ability to deliver, about the exposure to public scrutiny, and the inevitable risk of failure. "Can we handle that kind of project?" Tom's voice trembled slightly, half a question and half a self-doubt, betraying his inner struggle. "Why not?" Maya chimed in, her voice brimming with certainty. "Even if we fail, it's the experience that counts. We'll grow, and who knows, maybe it will spark something bigger. It's a calculated risk, right?" Her steadfast belief resonated, but it was an unsettling echo against his well-guarded skepticism. What if their dreams shattered around them? What if he couldn't support Ethan and Maya's idealism with the cold, hard reality of financial obligation weighing him down? As the two of them discussed the logistics and potential costs, Tom couldn't help but feel engulfed by their energy. He allowed himself to lean into the possibility, even if only for a moment. Thoughts of his youth regained clarity. He remembered how bursting with creativity felt, like swimming against the tide of monotony. That exhilaration had long been extinguished by responsibility. But what if he took that leap? Would it breathe new life into his spirit? Or would it drown him in regret? Emboldened by the excitement building in the room, Tom picked up a pencil and began to sketch alongside them. A strange sensation washed over him as he rendered shapes and lines, transforming the feelings that had suffocated him into something palpable. It was therapeutic, an act of rebellion against his past fears. The pencil became an extension of his will, breaking barriers he had painstakingly constructed. "See, you still have it," Ethan remarked with youthful exuberance, clearly impressed by Tom's spontaneous attempt at artistic expression. "Maybe. I just needed a reason," Tom replied, the weight of acceptance slowly settling in. Yet as the night wore on, reality reasserted itself, heavy and unavoidable. This venture was not without financial implications, and they were already straining under the current budget. Tom began to envision the faces of the bills gathering on the counter, the insistent reminders of their deteriorating savings. Would he be selfish to risk more on a passion project? When the sketches were set aside and the discussion turned to finances, Tom could feel the tension shifting in the air. "Ethan, what happens if we don't succeed?" he questioned. "What if we plunge further into debt?" Maya met his gaze unflinchingly. "We won't know until we try. Isn't that worth something?" Her conviction ignited something restless within him, revealing the sparks of a long-dormant dream. What if failure didn't equate to the end? What if it simply folded into a greater narrative of growth and learning? Torn between his instinct to protect and the possibility of finding something beautiful in the chaos, Tom found himself teetering on the edge of self-discovery. "Let us start small then," he proposed tentatively, feeling the weight of leadership settle upon him. "We can try the mural, but only if we devise a way to finance it responsibly." Ethan and Maya exchanged glances, a flurry of unspoken excitement igniting within the room. They had their first challenge, and for the first time Tom felt an alien sensation, a pulse of readiness coursing through him. But the aftershocks of his decision rippled through his mind, leaving an unsettling question echoing beneath his newfound resolve. Could he evade the shadows of financial fears while nurturing their dreams? Or was he setting himself up for a reckoning that might plunge them back into the turmoil he desperately sought to escape? As the fresh ideas sailed through their conversation and Tom envisaged the intricate paths ahead, a knot of apprehension twisted in his gut. The future loomed uncertain, and in it, he knew challenges awaited, ones that would test not just his ambition, but the very fabric of their fragile dreams. Before he could wrestle with it longer, the phone rang, a sudden intrusion that pulled him back to reality. He glanced at the screen, and his heart sank as he recognized the number. It was a call he couldn't ignore, a harbinger of duties that beckoned him back to the world he was trying to escape. What awaited him on the other end might change everything. Tom's fingers apprehensively hovered over the phone, its relentless ringing filling the small room with sharp vibrations that cut through the air. With an exhale punctuated by rising tension, he accepted the call, pressing the device to his ear. The voice on the other end was familiar, and with it, waves of obligation crashed over him, dragging him back toward a reality he desperately wished to escape. "Tom, it's Gina," the voice said, clipped and direct. "We need to talk about the mortgage payments. You're behind on the last 2 months." The mention of those bills set off a visceral reaction within him. Each figure summoned memories of sleepless nights spent weighing decisions and the stubborn spiral of anxiety that never fully left him. "I know," Tom replied, fighting to keep the resignation out of his voice. "I'm working on something that could turn things around." "What are you working on that would pay off your debts?" Gina's tone dripped with skepticism, piercing through the thin veil of hope he was trying to uphold. "Because from where I stand, it looks like you're just scrambling." He clenched his jaw, feeling the constraints of expectations closing in. "I'm starting a project with Ethan and Maya, artistic designs, murals. Could be something big. You just need to believe me." Silence hung on the line before her response sliced through. "Believe you? How can I when you haven't even paid the bills?" "It's just more excuses, Tom. You're running a risk that could sink all of us." Each word stung, rushing back memories of days when dreams seemed tangible and manageable. Yet here he was, wrapped in desperation, caught between the visions for future growth and the shackles of his past. "It's not just about money," he countered, desperation creeping into his voice. "Ethan and Maya believe this can work, and I need this chance." "Your son's ideas won't bring in cash overnight," Gina snapped back. "This is about stability for you and for him." If you don't take this seriously, I need you to believe in me, at least for a moment, he urged, a trembling desperation creeping into his tone. I can't let fear overshadow this opportunity. The acknowledgement that funding the mural offered a potential key to their future ignited a flicker of determination deep inside him. Refusing to be shackled by the burdens of yesterday's decisions, he felt a primal urge to propel these dreams forward, not just for himself but also for Ethan and Maya. I know what it means to take risks, he added, trying to steady himself from the wave of doubt rolling in. What if this is a chance not just to create art but to build something enduring? What if it teaches us all resilience? A sigh from Gina softened the air around him, as if cracking the resolve she had built. I want to believe you, but you need to show it deliver results. I'm not asking for a miracle, just a plan. Can you do that? Tom felt the weight of her words, and as she detailed next steps regarding the mortgage, a faint sense of clarity began to wrap around his chaotic thoughts. This wasn't just about financial suffocation. It was a call to action. Yeah, I can do that, he answered, the assurance resonating in his bones. I'm learning and I will figure it out. But I need time to execute the idea first. As the conversation ended, Tom set the phone down. A profound awareness settled in, igniting the flicker of hope coursing through him. The weight of the impending mural project transformed in his mind a conduit for personal renewal, a means to lead his family toward a new horizon. He glanced over at Ethan and Maya, who continued to enthuse over their sketches, each stroke of the pencil on paper imbued with the fervor of possibility. This venture was about more than finances, it was about striking back against the stagnant air of his life. He felt a burning desire to meld their dreams with reality, weaving them together like colors on the mural he imagined. Let us get started, he said, resolve hardening as he moved back to the desk. The act of creation surged within, carried by the mounting belief in his vision, ignited by Gina's push. Yet the shadows of doubt still hovered in the corners of his mind. The future may have felt vibrant and promising, but the fear of failing weighed heavily on him. The challenges ahead loomed larger than life, and he could already taste the intensity of the fight that lay ahead. As they set to work, thoughts of financial stability and the potential of failure became entwined in his mind, an impending storm. What would happen when the excitement faded and the realities of their situation crept back in? But for now, he latched onto the energy within the room, embracing the uncharted territory ahead of them. In that moment, amid the scent of fresh graphite and the hum of creativity, Tom decided he would take this leap together no matter what came next. Just as he began translating ideas into concrete plans, the distinct sound of footsteps echoed through the hallway, leading to an unforeseen interruption. The door creaked open, revealing an unexpected visitor who could alter everything. Tom turned slowly, bracing himself as the door swung open fully. Standing there, framed by the doorway, was Marcus, a friend from the past whom Tom had lost touch with over the years. Just behind him was Sarah, Marcus's new wife, someone Tom had never met but recognized instantly from social media photos. The camaraderie of old felt instantly overshadowed by the weight of his current life situation. Tom, long time, huh? Marcus's voice held a grating cheerfulness, a stark contrast to Tom's internal turmoil. Yeah, it's been a while, Tom replied, forcing a smile that felt disingenuous against the backdrop of his anxiety. He felt the walls of his little room close in, as if the very space echoed the tensions that filled it. Ethan and Maya exchanged glances, sensing the shift in the air. The vibrant exchanges about their mural project faltered into an awkward silence. What brings you guys here? Tom managed to ask, though a knot formed in his stomach. This was not the kind of visit he could afford right now. Marcus leaned slightly against the doorframe, a playful smirk on his face. We just got back from our honeymoon, he said, and we were thinking we could catch up, grab a bite. But we also need to talk about something important. Tom's heart raced. Sure. What's going on? That's the thing, Marcus said, shifting uncomfortably. We need some financial help. The statement landed sharply, cutting through the already frayed remnants of Tom's confidence. Financial help? He echoed, his voice barely above a whisper. Sarah stepped forward, her posture exuding a quiet confidence. It's kind of a big deal, she said, her tone sincere but urgent. You see, we've been looking to invest in a small business of sorts, but we're a bit short on cash right now. We need about 15,000 to get started. Tom felt the world pivot beneath his feet. This was precisely the kind of burden he didn't know he could handle. Memories of past investments, lost dreams, and dwindling savings flooded back to him. I can't, he stammered. Tom, I know this is unexpected, Marcus interrupted quickly. But I really believe that if anyone could help us out, it would be you. You have the knack for turning things into success. Success. How far away that word felt. I'm not in a place right now, Tom's voice faltered as he tried to collect his thoughts. How could he explain his mounting anxieties to someone who had once looked up to him? The ghosts of missed opportunities loomed large, and he didn't want to face that judgment right now. Ethan, noticing the tension coiling in the air, stepped forward hesitantly. Dad, maybe we can find a way. His youthful optimism tugged at Tom's heart, a reminder of the weight he carried not only for himself but for Ethan's dream as well. Tom held up a hand, silencing his son. The pressure from Marcus and Sarah felt insurmountable, but it was the pressure inside himself that truly threatened to break him. You don't understand. I'm behind on my own mortgage payments. I'm trying to start a project with Ethan and Maya that could help us get out of this. I can't take on anything else. Tom, Sarah said softly, we know you can do this. You just need to think about the potential. It's an opportunity for all of us. The potential. Could he stretch himself further when he was already teetering on the edge? The internal battle raged, a fierce war between familial loyalty and the realization of his limits. Panic bubbled under the surface as he forced himself to breathe. I'll think about it, he finally managed to say, though the words felt like daggers in his throat. He glanced at Ethan and Maya, their expressions mingling curiosity with concern. How had his life become so tangled? As his visitors exchanged glances, Tom felt the urgency of the moment honing in tightly, the great chasm of expected success looming against the reality of his failures. He needed to come up with a plan, not just to prevent his own fall but to give his family a fighting chance as well. As they settled into a discussion, he realized the stakes had just risen, and they were higher than ever before. There was clarity in that. He needed to act not just for survival, but to forge a path where dreams could coalesce into something real. But as Marcus began explaining his business plan, Tom felt the creeping dread of doubt slither into his ears. Could he rebuff his friend's request and risk their friendship? Or would he plunge headfirst into another financial abyss just as he was beginning to breathe again? The pressure was mounting, and every second felt like a ticking clock. Just then, Tom heard the unrelenting buzz in his mind, a truth he needed to confront. The future was brimming with unknowns, and it dawned on him that every choice would carry weight. He would soon have to face more than just shallow waters. Indeed, the moment of truth was coming, but first, he had to decipher his own resolve before making that leap. Would he dare to confront his foundations now, or would he let fear dictate his choices once more? The ticking clock grew louder in his thoughts, drowning out everything else. As Marcus detailed his vision, the words turned into a distant hum, drowning in a tide of Tom's internal dialogue. The anxiety was palpable, pulsing like a drum in his ears. How could he possibly navigate this moment without losing everything he had worked so hard to protect? Each explanation Marcus offered about the business seemed more like a tether pulling Tom deeper into troubling waters rather than a lifeline. Tom forced himself to concentrate, scanning the room for a sign of understanding from his son. Ethan appeared engaged, nodding occasionally, but Tom's heart sank further. His own dreams hadn't materialized. How could he risk everything on someone else's ambition? The stakes weren't just monetary. They surged into the realm of his family's stability. Look, I appreciate the spirit of what you're doing, Tom interjected, finally finding his voice. But I can't pour water into a well that's already dry. Marcus's hopeful expression faltered for the briefest moment, revealing the pressure he himself felt. Sarah stepped in swiftly. We know it's a lot to ask, but think about the potential returns, she urged, her voice steady. This could change everything for us all. The desperation painted in her eyes clawed at Tom's heart, intertwining with the guilt of resisting. They had come to him expecting support, believing he could be their salvation. And here he was, a hollow version of himself, unwilling to acknowledge the depth of his own capacity to help. Yet, beneath it all lay the remnants of an entrepreneurial spirit that had once burned bright. Tom had lost his way, but could he find that spark within? What if he could channel this moment into a catalyst for his own growth? The thought was enticing yet terrifying. Ethan's voice cut through the clutter of thoughts. "Dad, I believe in you. We can discuss it more, maybe find ways to make it work." His optimism was a lifebuoy tossed into the tumultuous sea of doubt. Tom turned to his son, seeing the blend of hope and anxiety in his eyes, and realized how much he needed to cultivate that belief in himself as well. "I don't want to let you down or your friends," Tom muttered, wrestling with his choices. The pressure in the room was thickening, each second a persistent reminder that inaction could lead to further despair. Did he really want to turn away from a chance at potential growth, to stagnate in fear? As the conversation shifted towards timeline and strategy, Tom's mind raced with possibilities. He thought of the murals creating opportunities for Ethan and Maya, how they could make their mark if they just had the chance. What if he could find common ground between their dreams and his own recovery? "Okay," he spoke up, his voice laced with newfound determination. "I'll consider your offer. But we need a solid plan, a strategy that minimizes risk while maximizing potential." A weight shifted in the room, a shared understanding that was momentarily comforting, but it was also a new burden. The decision wasn't just his anymore. It was a collective venture interwoven with the hearts of those present. Tom felt a surge of urgency. He had to balance his family's future with the aspiration of helping his friends. Could he ensure their success without sacrificing his own dreams? This fragile ground was hardly familiar, but it was certainly one worth treading. He caught Marcus's grateful smile, and Sarah's nod of approval sparked a flicker of warmth within him. It was as if taking this step had reignited some flickering flame. In a world where he had felt hopelessly stuck, a path was beginning to emerge. But as the plans took shape, another thought seeped in: what would the return on investment be for Tom? He had doubted his success before. What if it haunted him again? Could he evolve from this moment, or would he wind up repeating the cycle of disappointment? Tom felt the stinging weight of his own expectations mixed with excitement as the shadows of uncertainty loomed again. Striking a balance between hope and fear was now the delicate dance he had to navigate. As they wrapped up the initial discussion, Tom contemplated the essence of his own journey. He wasn't just facing a financial decision, but a deeper reflection of who he wanted to become. Determined but fraught with trepidation, he was now standing on the precipice. The next move could either solidify his growth or plunge him into another spiral of setbacks. The deafening silence of decision reverberated in the room, compelling him to confront not just their dreams but his own very soul. And as the clock ticked ominously, Tom knew something had to give before the dam finally broke. What lay ahead would test not only his resolve but redefine who he was willing to become in pursuit of better days. Tom's mind churned as he left the conversation. The outlines of the plan were still forming in his thoughts, each piece both enticing and threatening. Doubts intertwined with sparks of optimism. Walking home, he glanced at the streetlights flickering to life in the growing twilight. A reminder that in darkness light could still find its way through. What had he just committed to? He navigated the familiar streets but felt unmoored, as though the solid ground had shifted beneath him. He needed to regain control, a sense of authority over his own choices. The plan, however formative, had to be grounded in his vision, not merely an extension of someone else's aspirations. Yet, instead of pulsating confidence, anxiety washed over him. What if he failed again? Reaching his front door, Tom paused momentarily, realizing the profound void he had created between himself and his family due to his stasis. The scared little boy navigating life's uncertainties had somehow morphed into a man unwilling to move forward. When had he started avoiding risks? Fear had become an uninvited companion, stifling aspirations and tainting dreams. He stepped inside, greeted by the faint sound of laughter floating from the living room. Ethan and Maya were joking, their voices a comforting balm to his racing thoughts. Tom took a breath, recalling how victorious emotion filled his heart when he saw Ethan shining with ambition. It reminded him of who he once was. The moment from earlier, the shared anticipation came flooding back, urging him to act decisively. "Dad," Ethan called, noticing Tom. "We were just talking about the initial artwork ideas. Want to hear them?" "Sure," Tom said, forcing a smile, although beneath it lay the weight of apprehension. This was new territory. He had to forge a connection that had been frayed through years of neglect. As they discussed colors and themes, Tom listened intently to their enthusiasm. The joy radiating from them began to chip away at his trepidation. Maya's creative ideas, bubbling with youthful exuberance, sparked something inside him, an echo of his own once-dreamt ambitions. They spoke about risks with a sincerity that suggested they saw him as a partner, not just a lifeline. How refreshing it felt to be considered a vital part once again. He leaned into the energy, letting it motivate him. What if we approach this like a startup? He suggested, surprising himself with the ease of the words. We define clear roles and responsibilities, set measurable goals, and most importantly, make room for failures without losing heart. Ethan's eyes lit up. Exactly. It's just like what we discussed, the idea about iterating on designs. We need to keep trying until we find something that feels really right. Emboldened, Tom realized he had stumbled upon a fundamental pivot in their process. Failure could become a stepping stone, not an endpoint. This shift in perspective electrified him. Despite the burden of expectation, clarity emerged. He was not just driving a business venture. He was part of rekindling a family legacy, his legacy. The discussion continued, but an undercurrent of tension still threaded through Tom's thoughts. They were at the stage of ideation, but what happened when reality set in? When events aligned against them, as they often did? Could they endure the inevitable challenges? The zipper of vulnerability was naming itself again, ready to sabotage this fragile ascent. His resolve to be a protector still wrestled with the desire to evolve. He needed to prove to himself that he could rise beyond the shadows of doubt. Back in the solace of his thoughts, concern burrowed deep, reminding him that decisions had consequences, and the stakes involved were monumental. As the clock drifted closer to dinner, Tom took a moment to regroup internally. The sweeping changes he faced in his ambitions mirrored the tumultuous process of rediscovering himself. He was threading a revitalized narrative, but would it hold? The final buzz of the evening turned to a pause. He watched Ethan and Maya, two bright lights in a demure embrace, pondering if he was prepared to embrace the volatility that lay ahead. Amidst the rising tension of possibilities, Tom felt a surge of determination beginning to take root, each moment solidifying his readiness to face his adversities head-on. Their laughter rang through the house, a sweet reminder of the balance he sought. But deep down, the next challenge loomed, whispering unresolved dilemmas or betrayals yet unknown. The moment of reckoning was approaching. Tom had to define what he truly stood for, and in doing so he risked either building anew or tumbling into uncertainty once more. And as they sat down to dinner, filled with plans, potentials, and guarded dreams, one looming question persisted: what sacrifices would he need to make, and would he be able to face them when the truth of his decision emerged? Hours later, Tom lay awake, the disarray of his thoughts eclipsing the fleeting comfort of familial laughter. The shadows in his room seemed to grow taller. He felt dwarfed by the weight of impending decisions. A cold sweat trickled down his spine as the implications of taking risks reared their head anew. What had begun as a hopeful endeavor with Ethan and Maya now cast a shadow of trepidation over him. Could he truly navigate this entrepreneurial journey alongside his children? Or was he setting them on a path fraught with peril? The investment he felt compelled to make wasn't purely financial but emotional. Tom had been a mute observer for too long, watching life pass by from the sidelines, much like an out-of-focus picture. His children's ambitions shimmered before him, daring him to reclaim his own, but beneath that daring lay the question of what had been lost. What if he attracted failure instead of success? What if he plunged them into hardship rather than familial triumph? Morning sunlight filtered through the curtains, and as the light danced across his face, a moment of clarity struck him. He was not merely a father or a mentor, he was also an architect of his destiny. He couldn't allow fear to dictate his actions like it had in the past. Tom pushed himself up, heart racing. Each second felt charged with potential. Fueled by newfound determination, he pored over business articles and entrepreneurial blogs, seeking not only strategies but stories of comeback and resilience. One phrase caught his eye: fail fast, learn faster. He scribbled it down, feeling its weight as if it had tarried within him, waiting for recognition. Tom encountered various narratives of entrepreneurs who had experienced setbacks but emerged transformed, more capable than before. Ethan and Maya entered the kitchen, interrupting his musings. Their bright faces and casual energy cut through his earlier doubts. "What's on your agenda for today, Dad?" Ethan inquired, nudging his cereal bowl forward with an enthusiasm that ignited something inside Tom. "Let us strategize our approach," Tom declared, catching his children off guard. It wasn't merely the day's plan that had awoken within him. It was a larger realization that anchored his footing. They would face challenges together, and he would commit fully to the roller coaster of creativity that lay ahead. "Are you serious?" Maya asked, her eyes wide with anticipation. "Absolutely. We need to map out everything: our goals, our roles, our creative briefs. We have to prepare for when the stakes get higher so we aren't caught off guard." As he articulated those words, it all began to crystallize: the urgency, the camaraderie, the thrill of crafting something from the ground up with the people he loved most. They gathered around the kitchen table, drawing sketches, mapping ideas, and arguing over fonts, each moment brimming with exuberance and potential. Tom felt a sense of pride swell within him. He was contributing in real time to their aspirations while embodying an example of tenacity. The conversations pulsed with life, but beneath the surface lay unrecognized tensions. The more Tom invested, the more he felt a creeping dread about what they might encounter. What if their ideas weren't good enough? What if he wasn't good enough? Would his efforts spiral into ridicule or a family catastrophe? Those thoughts lurked at the edges, as insidious as weeds amongst blooming flowers. And if the money runs out, what then? The nagging voice of fear inside him whispered. The notion of financial instability loomed large, and Tom's heart raced at the thought. "I'll figure it out," he murmured aloud, half to himself, half to his children. Yet even as he spoke those words, the uncertainty gnawed. Pragmatism and anxiety brushed against each other. Could he balance the potential for instability with the desire for growth? As they finalized their action plan, exhaustion washed over Tom, a signal that the day had rendered its wear on them. Still, despite the physical fatigue, his heart was alight with purpose. He was fighting back, carving a new narrative, but as he prepared to say goodnight, a troubling thought emerged, echoing insistently. What reserve of resilience would he need to draw upon when they encountered real obstacles? In the silence that followed, Tom felt the oppressive grip of the unknown titan once more, knocking against his conscious resolve. Tomorrow would bring test not just of plans but of conviction. Would he stand firm when the darkest doubts returned? Outside, twilight fell heavy and quiet, a fitting backdrop for the storm brewing within. The time had come to seal his commitment. The call for resilience was imminent, and he had glimpsed, if just for a moment, the stakes of true vulnerability. Yet uncertainty swirled before him. What if they depended on him to protect their dreams, and he faltered? The darkness of that looming challenge reminded him that growth was never without price. As he turned the lights off, resting amid ambition and fear, a singular urgency gripped him. Could he break through the walls of his prior regrets to truly catalyze a legacy? And with that thought lingering, what would happen when he faced the first real setback? Would he crumble or confront it head-on? The dawn would bring clarity, but it also loomed as a harbinger of truth, and Tom braced himself for whatever tomorrow held. The sun rose with a resurgence of hope, illuminating the kitchen as Tom prepared breakfast, his mind a flurry of plans and strategies born from the previous day's discussions. He flipped the pancakes intentionally, a newfound determination guiding his every movement. Each sizzle echoed the energy that coursed through him. Today would be different. This venture with Ethan and Maya was no longer just an opportunity to support their dreams. It had morphed into a vehicle for his own redemption. As they gathered around the table, the air buzzed with anticipation. Ethan and Maya arrived, their eyes sparkling with the kind of enthusiasm that reminded Tom of his younger self, unchained and full of ambition. They spread their sketches across the table like a vibrant tapestry, a literal manifestation of their dreams. "Today is the day we take our first concrete steps. We'll define our business structure," Tom announced, the words sounding authoritative despite a slight tremor in his heart. "We need to set measurable goals and identify our roles clearly, so that we can navigate obstacles together." Both Ethan and Maya nodded vigorously, their faces emanating a contagious energy. "Let us break this down by phases," Maya suggested, her fingers dancing in excitement as she jotted down notes. "First, we'll start with community outreach. We need to understand how to engage potential clients for our mural." Tom felt the weight of responsibility shift from a burdensome stone to a tangible, manageable task. Each idea they discussed became a brick, building a strong foundation for what they were striving to achieve. Hours passed in a whirlwind of brainstorming, laughter, and the occasional argument, but through it all there was an undeniable sense of unity. They were all deeply invested in one another's aspirations. T one point, Ethan paused. Dad, I know this isn't just about us. We're in this together, right? This is for you too. Listening to his son speak, Tom recognized the truth in Ethan's words. It was no longer about merely helping his children from the sidelines. He needed to embrace his role in this partnership fully. It was a moment of profound clarity. The risks didn't just belong to Ethan and Maya. They belonged to him too. Absolutely, Tom replied, his voice buoyed by conviction. And I won't let any of us down. As the day unfolded, they tackled everything from crafting a budget to outlining potential marketing strategies. The worries that had plagued Tom began to fade in light of their collaborative triumphs. He felt, for the first time in a long time, that he was carving a path forward. Later that evening, as they neared completion of their operational plan, an urgent knock interrupted their celebration. Tom opened the door to reveal an unexpected visitor. Gina, his financial advisor, stood there with furrowed brows. There would be no easy escape now. The real world was crashing in again. Tom, I'm here about your mortgage payments. I received a notice. We need to discuss the possibilities as you're still behind. Her tone was kind but laced with the professional responsibility that echoed through his house. Tom felt a wave of dread crash over him. The world outside threatened to undermine everything they had initiated. He glanced back at Ethan and Maya, whose expressions were a mix of encouragement and concern. Standing firm, he faced Gina. I have plans. I'm starting a mural project with Ethan and Maya, and I believe it will be beneficial. I need time to see it through. Gina studied him, her skepticism replaced with a flicker of intrigue. A mural project? How are you financing this? Instead of retracting under pressure, Tom found himself sharing the details of their venture, his voice steadying with each articulation of their plans. He spoke passionately about the potential impact of their work, the community engagement, and milestones they had set. For the first time, he found strength in revealing not just a plan, but his revitalized ambition. Gina listened, and slowly the tension in her shoulders softened. All right, I can work with this. Momentum. I need you to execute it well, but if you believe this project has promise, I'll hold off on the meetings for now in favor of a more solid assessment in a month. But I need commitment in return. Tom's heart soared at her words. This was the moment of validation he had needed not only for himself but for Ethan and Maya. He could see their hope tethered to the promise of a future. Thank you, Gina. You'll see that our plan will work. He shook her hand with a newfound confidence, feeling the weight of his decision shift once more. The night ended with family cheers, a palpable sense of unity shimmering in the air. Tom had not only salvaged an opportunity, he had rejuvenated his spirit and rekindled the flames of family connection. As he tucked Ethan and Maya into bed, he reveled in the satisfaction of their whispered dreams and laughter filling the house again, a smart reminder that fear need not dictate outcomes. As he finally lay down that night, Tom realized that growth was not merely achieved through external achievements, but it was also about embracing storms and nurturing dreams alongside those who matter most. The nagging doubt still lingered, but he finally veered toward optimism. The relentless pursuit ahead and the fear of failure were all now intertwined as part of his identity. In that tender moment, Tom knew he stood on the brink of something extraordinary, a profound transformation fueled by commitment, hope, and an unwavering belief that together, they can conquer anything. The past was behind him, and for the first time in years, he felt like he was truly moving forward. Don't wait even one more second. Subscribe immediately to our channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like right now to feed the algorithm. You need to subscribe now, and we demand your support. Comment below with your reactions and theories about Tom's transformation, and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible conclusion.